All right. It's 1:30. I'm gonna get started with the class. Okay. Um, this is cisp 300. Just making sure so you might want to make sure that this is cisp 300 that you're enrolled in, and not cisc or cisa, because there are different disciplines, which look about the same. The title of the class is Algorithm Design slash Problem Solving. Um, we are really just gonna get you guys ready for the next class. So the purpose of this class is to get you guys ready for CISP 360. Okay, how it is called is somewhat irrelevant to the actual content. The advisory of this class is CISC 310. As an advisory, it means it would help in most cases if you take that class first, but it is not it's not a prerequisite. So for the most part, I'm making the assumption that you guys know how to use Google Spreadsheet or a particular spreadsheet program, not for calculation purposes, but just to create a document, enter some values into the cells, save the spreadsheet, and so on. Okay, I'm gonna do it in class too. So when you observe me doing it, ask questions if you don't know what I'm doing or how to get something done. Okay, because you cannot see what key I'm pressing. You cannot see something, which button of the mouse I'm clicking. So if you don't understand how something is done, just raise your hand and let me know. But that's basically what CISC 310 is here for, is you know how to use a computer before you try to learn how to program one. Does that make sense, kind of? Okay. This is a description pulled right off of the schedule, so there should be no surprises here. Do we have any questions on this screen? Okay, so if there are no questions on this screen, then we move on to the other stuff. I believe this is also pulled mostly from the schedule. It really just has to do with the section number, when we start, when the semester ends. This is an on-campus class. On paper, I have 19 people on the wait list of 20 capacity, but somebody just told me that he or she was not able to get on the wait list. So we have a pretty full class here. I will take roll today. Okay, when I remember, I'll take roll, but sometimes I forget. There's no textbook for this class. Okay, this is one of those zero textbook cost classes where I write all of the material that you need for this class. It's good news and bad news. The good news is you don't have to spend a penny on textbooks. The bad news is I don't have a publisher behind me to do all the editing, to do all the marketing, to do all the illustration, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that means the text that you will be using in this semester may appear to be kind of simplistic. Okay, if you find any errors in the text, you're more than welcome to let me know. And for the most part, I can correct the notes on the fly during class time or shortly after class. So we can actually refine and make improvements of the documents as we go. I have used the material for years already, just to let you know, so that you know that you're not my first guinea pigs. Okay, you're probably the 6th or 7th batch of guinea pigs already. What goes next to here? Okay, this is a long list of what we call SLOs. I'm hoping that you're taking some other classes in addition to this one, so you know what an SLO is already. Does anyone know what is an SLO? Student learning objectives or student learning outcomes. You can use either interpretation. So these are the things that I want you to be able to understand, or you should be able to do these things by the end of this semester. Obviously, it makes no sense for me to go through this list at this point. Okay, so we'll kind of check back maybe mid-semester and see how many of these items we can check off. Okay, and then we'll do one more time at the end of the semester, just to make sure that all of the key items are checked. All right, moving on. So these two, section 2 and 3 are not really useful. I'm going to skip those. Section 4 talks about me. My name is Tak. Last name is really difficult to pronounce. I cannot pronounce it myself, okay? Because it is an approximation of two characters in Chinese, and it is coming from the Cantonese dialect, which basically means 1.7 billions of Chinese cannot pronounce it either, so don't feel bad. Cantonese is a dialect that is only spoken in a portion of Guangdong, which is a state or your province in China. So the number of people who can speak Cantonese is actually pretty small compared to the 1.7, 1.8 billion of Chinese. Now, you might have heard a lot of Cantonese, on TV, particularly these days, because of Hong Kong. Hong Kong is within the region where Cantonese is spoken as the native tongue. So, um, so when you want to refer to me, you can call me Tak. Okay, just the name is fine. You can call me Professor Tak, obviously. You can also call me Dr. Tak. Okay, I do have a doctorate degree in computer science, but it's your choice. Okay, whatever you choose out of those three is fine. I just do not like when people just call me Professor, because it seems like they don't even know what my name is. Do you see what I mean? Okay, it's okay just to call me by my name. That's fine. It's kind of like when I talk to you, I just say student. It doesn't seem natural, right? Now, I have to say that there's no way I can remember the names of every single one of you. But when I do talk to you, you can introduce your name first. And then for the rest of the conversation, I would use your name. Is that okay? All right, cool. If you need to contact me, there are 3 ways listed here. The first one is my phone number. I'm not really at the phone too often, so most likely you have to leave a message, which will then be emailed to me. So it's basically just a message that you're sending to me by email. The second one is just email. And the third one is face-to-face office hour. At this point, I do not have any online office hours set up. I might convert the Friday one to an online office hour, but at this point, it is face-to-face. So are we still doing okay? All right, cool. Section 5 talks about how this class is conducted, how I get the material delivered. This is a fairly conventional face-to-face class where I'll be presenting material on the projector, talking, but I really like discussions as well. So if you guys have any questions, just raise your hand, and if it is an interesting topic and multiple people want to contribute, we can have an in-class discussion, in which case I become the moderator of the discussion. All right, so we are not strictly following the protocol of I'm the only one speaking and only one of you can be talking at a time. Well, actually, only one of you can be talking at a time, but it's not just talking to me. You can talk to each other too in the class. Okay, it just has to be moderated because I don't want everybody to talk at the same time. That would not be helpful. All right. We'll get to the material that you have to read later on. Section 6 talks about how to contact me and how long it will take me to reply in case you contact me by email. So the policy is 24 hours for email within the week, and 48 hours if it's over the weekend. Is that okay? All right. I do have office hours every day, so if you just want to come see me, that's fine too. Behavior policy. 7.1 talks about unintentional disruptive behavior, which usually has to do with phones ringing. Okay, that happened a lot, like 4 or 5 years ago when everybody just first got their smartphone and things are exciting, but it really should not be happening much these days, right? Why? Huh?
Now it's so popular, everyone has a smartphone.
Everybody has a smartphone, but don't you think every smartphone will be ringing now that everybody has a smartphone? You can silence it, okay? Android now has do not disturb, has been around for what, 2 years or so? So do not disturb allows you to associate your phone's silence setting to a calendar or multiple calendars. So if you go to Google Calendar, it can be the school calendar, okay, the school Gmail account. You can set up your own calendar for classes and then tie in do not disturb to that calendar. So anytime you have a class in that schedule, your phone can turn off its ringer automatically. And then anytime right after those blocks, it will turn itself back on again so that you don't have to remember to turn it back on. All right? So I'm pretty sure iOS has a similar feature. It only kind of makes sense that the two operating systems have similar features. So make use of those features. Okay, mine is already silenced, except for certain people, because they only call me when there's an emergency. So you can do the same thing. Okay, you can say, well, I'm expecting a child or something that is urgent that you need to know about. That's okay. I'm not strict to the point where you cannot get notified, even though it's something that's really important. Just kind of keep it to a minimum. All right? Are we good on that one? Okay. 7.2 is a little bit more serious. It has to do with behaviors that can cause fear, intimidate the feeling of being intimidated, or just general discomfort. Okay, it can be intentional, can be unintentional. If it is intentional, it is serious. Okay, if it's unintentional, I might need to talk to some people after class, about that behavior. Now, it doesn't only apply to you, okay, as a student. It applies to me too. If anyone feels that I have done something in class, leading to fear, intimidation, or discomfort, let me know directly or indirectly. Okay, you can just leave a note, anonymously with the office, so it would appear in my mailbox, and just says, okay, I'm a student in your cisp300 class. When you did blah blah blah, I felt blah blah blah, and so I know. Okay, I would not intentionally do any one of these, but unintentionally it is, I guess, possible. Anything is possible. So are we good on this particular topic? All right, good. So get even more seriously, any type of violent or dangerous or endangering behaviors would definitely not be tolerated in this class. I'm not the only person who can report to the police or the campus police. Any one of you, if you feel that you're endangered or when the situation is appropriate, you can also call the police directly with your phone. All right? First day of class or orientation, anyone who's missing the first day of class, obviously not any one of you that I'm looking at right now, right? Because you're here. But if someone is on roster but does not show up today, that person will be dropped. Accommodations has to do with DSPS. They just renamed the department, but it retained the same acronym. So before the renaming, this is called the, where is the full, right here. So before it's called the Disabled Student Program and Services, they now renamed themselves to something else, but it is also still DSPS, okay? So if you need accommodations in terms of how much time for exams or a live captionist or something like that, you need to go to these people first and get the accommodation, okay? If you need extra time for exams for whatever reason, I'm not going to question the reason. I just need to know that DSPS, those people have evaluated the situation and say that yes, this person needs like extra time in test. So you will need to bring that form to me so that I can also make accommodations for those things. All right? So I'm just trying to tell people, do not come to me and say, I need extra time. I cannot do anything about that. But when I have a form from DSPS, then we can do it. I'm just going to pass the row sheet because this is a fairly big class. It will take a little bit of time for this to travel through the entire classroom. If you're enrolled, just go ahead and initial name. Just put your initial next to your name. If you're not enrolled in class, on the second page and the third, there's the wait list. Do the same thing. Just keep in mind that on the wait list, it is not sorted by last name. So you might need to spend a little bit more time to go through the wait list. If you're enrolled, it is alphabetically sorted by last name. If you're not on waitlist and you want to add to the class, just add your name to a blank space after that, along with your student ID. I need the student ID to do anything, okay? Do we have any questions about the roll sheet as I pass it along? No questions? All right. So I'm going to start with this side here because I'm lazy, because otherwise I have to walk all the way over there and then walk all the way back here. All right. Section 10 has to do with excessive absence. Excessive absence is defined to be 6% or more absences. This is a lecture-only class, which makes it super easy to calculate. Each class is about 2.5% of the entire semester. So that means the first unexcused absence is not excessive. The second one, which adds up to 5%-ish, is not excessive. The third one is, because the third absence would have added up to 7.5% of absence, which exceeds 6%. What that translates to is if I find that somebody has missed classes 3 times or more, that person will be dropped from this class. I'm assuming those absences are not excused. We'll talk about what is excused later on. So is that policy understood? Okay, it's all good? All right. So unexcused absences is really just what it implies, okay? It is unexcused. So that means if you have never used up any one of these unexcused absences, and we have 2 lectures left at the end of the semester, you can use that. You can simply say that, oh man, I haven't used my unexcused absences. I'm going to miss the last 2 lectures. It's perfectly okay from the numbers perspective. Is it a good idea? Probably not. Because the last 2 lectures is probably going to be a review for the final exam. So if anything, those are the 2 most important lectures as far as getting your grade up is concerned. All right, but I'm just talking about from the perspective of, it would still not be excessive if you've missed those 2 last classes, just because, okay, because it's unexcused. So these are just calculations. What is going to be excused? There are 3 main categories of excused absences. The first one is you are sick, okay? You are sick and you can prove to me that you were sick or unfit for class, then that is excused. Now, it means that you have to get a form or a letter from someone, a doctor, a nurse practitioner, someone with affiliation with a health organization, saying that you were sick, you are contagious, you should not be going to school, or something like that, okay? I don't need to know the exact reason why you cannot get to school, so if you feel that it is your own privacy and you do not want to disclose that, you can black out the portion of the reason. But I still need to know who wrote that letter, with a signature, and your name on it, so that I know that you went through some process and somebody thought that you could not or should not go to school. Is that okay? Cool. The second category of reasons would be athletic events. I'm not talking about somebody who's attending an event. I'm talking about the athlete themselves, okay? So if you are part of the football team representing American River College and your coach said, we got a match on the day that we meet, or you have to practice, there's a practice meet, and you cannot make it to the class, your coach will give you a form to give it to me to say that, okay, this is an official practice session and this student is requested to be present at the practice and that is excused. All right? The third category has to do with requests from the government. Okay? It can be a jury summon, it can be a court summon, it can be military duty, and so on and so forth. Okay? And once again, I need proof of that as well. So jury summon is easy. Okay, you just make a photocopy of your jury summon and go like, okay, I was summoned by the court to be a juror, and I cannot make it to class. Okay, that's fine. If you are summoned, to appear in court, and you feel that, okay, but I don't really want TAC to know about the case, why I need to go to court, you can just black that out. I just need to know it comes from which court, which judge, and your name is on it, okay, and the date and the time, okay, but you can black out all the reasons and and whatnot, okay. If it's a military duty, same thing, okay. I just need to know it is official. Are we good with these excused absences? Yes. Yes. Yes, mental health is no different from regular physical health as far as I am concerned. Yep. All right. So the rest basically are unexcused, or they do not have to be excused. So that includes religious holidays, family occasions, job interviews, and so on and so forth. Okay. Are there any questions about what is not excused? So you got 2 days to use up these non-excused reasons. And what if you got 2 days of absences because of military duties, 3 days because of jury duty, and then what is the one? Oh, and then 3 more days because of athletic events. It's fine with me, okay? But the question is it fine with you? Because even though all of those absences are excused, you're still missing class. And missing class, especially with an entry-level class like this, can be bad. Okay, so you have to make that call once you have, even if all the absences are excused, you kind of have to evaluate, can you still catch up with the class with all of those absences? But that's a decision that you have to make if all the absences are excused. Is that making any sense? All right, okay. Late policy is also easy. There's no late policy. I do not accept anything late. If the deadline on Canvas sets right before class time, which is so typical of how I schedule the deadline of the following week, that's exactly what it is. Okay, I do not give people extra time. I do not take late assignments and give people fewer points. There's no late policy. So are we good on that one? Now I always tell you guys ahead of time when something is due. So plan accordingly from the get-go. So don't wait until the last minute. Okay, the key is plan ahead of time so that you can get it done before the deadline. Can we move on to line 13, section 13? Okay. Section 13 talks about basically what most people think is cheating. And the way I look at cheating is I don't look at how it is done. I look at this part here. It is academic dishonesty occurs when a student attempts to show possession of a level of competency, knowledge, or skill beyond the level of the student, or in some cases, helping somebody else to achieve the same result. So it has to do with two things. It has to do with intention and the result. But it doesn't have anything to do with how it is done. It can be conventional, okay? I'm just looking at somebody else's test, okay? It can be telepathic. It can be time travel. I don't care how it is done. Is that okay? All right. So in the case of time travel, how can I possibly tell that somebody time traveled in order to get all the keys to the answer and then come back in time and take the test? I'll tell you a little bit later. The other way to look at this is to look at it from the integrity perspective. So basically, the grade of a particular assessment can be an assignment, can be a test, can be a final exam of a particular student reflects the academic performance of the student and only of the student who turned in the assessment. Okay, so it's not reflective of somebody else's performance. At the approved scheduled time of the assessment. So unless somebody got approval from me to take the test early or late, we all have to take the test at the time that it is scheduled. Following all the rules of the assessment as well as general rules already discussed in the syllabus. Okay? Using only resources in terms of how much time. Is it open book? Can we use calculators? Can we bring in past homework assignments, past tests or not, that are permitted by the instructor? If you don't know whether something is going to be permitted or not, talk to me first. Okay? Is that okay? All right. We'll talk a little bit about the exams at a later point today. Okay, so this is the litmus test of, in case somebody said, no, I think I'm being wrongfully accused, because I actually did not cheat, okay? So in case there's a disagreement, one thing I can do is to give that person a second test, okay? And then I will look at the performance or the results of the two tests. If they are about the same, then I am wrong. Okay, I'm in the wrong, and I will say I am sorry to wrongfully accuse you. You definitely did not do that. Okay, but if the second test has a much lower score compared to the first one, then I have evidence that that person does not actually have the knowledge or the performance, that is reflected by the first test. Okay, so this is one way I can use to resolve situations where somebody is accused but does not admit to what I'm accusing. I can make mistakes just like everybody else. Okay, so I'm saying that, well, in case there is a disagreement, this is what we can do. Section 13.3 has to do with why am I so focused on academic integrity in all of my classes. Well, it really is for your benefit as well. Because if ARC is known not to enforce academic integrity, what is going to happen? It looks bad, but it's just the school looking bad. How would that affect you? Exactly. Okay, because eventually the UCs and the CSUs will figure out and go like, hey, somebody getting a passing or good grade from ARC doesn't mean anything. We are no longer going to accept students, transfer students from AR. That affects everybody, right? Honest and dishonest people. So that's one reason why it is really important. I feel it is important to make sure that as much as I possibly can to make sure that things are okay in this department. Okay. Consequences of dishonesty is I am going to report every single case to the Office of Student Conduct. So it is not just me who keeps track of it. The person who is in charge in the Office of Student Conduct would also have a centralized database to keep track of these incidents. Okay, so there's no okay, the first two incidents are just going to be stay in the class, and then the third one is going to get reported. Nope, the first one is going to get reported. Okay. So here's a big question. What if somebody feels I'm wrongfully accused? What can a student possibly do, if a student is wrongfully accused? Not only in this class, but also in all of your other classes. Well, when we scroll down here, there's a link to a document that talks about your rights as a student and your responsibilities as a student at AR. Okay? It's really kind of important to read this because unless you know your rights, sometimes you may not know when your rights is violated. Okay? I can give you one example. Okay? So let's just say that student A is a star student in my class. Okay, no known record of doing anything bad, and I talk to my colleague and go like, hey, your student A, he's a really great student. He does, he got an A in everything in my class. You know what? Right at that point, I have already violated your privacy. So according to FERPA, I cannot talk about your grade to my colleagues unless I'm not even sure with your permission I can do it or not. So in this case, this student is getting good grades. I'm praising the student in front of my colleague, but even that is disclosing the grade of the student to a colleague who should not know about the student's performance in my class. Now, did you know that this is already a problem before I talked about this? You would think, praising a student in my class in front of my colleague should be okay. But technically speaking, it is not. Okay, so reading this document will tell you what your rights are. Okay, so I strongly encourage you guys to do that. Classroom behaviors and expectations. We talked about this a little bit. I just want to focus on a few things. We talked about mobile devices already. Chatting is the most common problem, especially when we have a class size like this. And most of the time, the chatting is not because somebody really wants to disrupt the class. There's no intention to disrupt the class, but there is the result or consequence of disrupting the class. A lot of chatting has to do with actual content of the class. Somebody may not be paying full attention, like maybe trying to write down something and missed 2 sentences that I said. Okay, so that person may turn to a neighboring, student and go like, hey, what did Tech just talk about? And that turns into conversation, and that becomes a problem with the people surrounding these 2 people, because that chatting is going to be loud enough usually to be overheard by people surrounding these 2 people. So I don't want that to happen in the class. If anyone feels that, okay, I'm not quite sure what Tech is talking about, or I flipped the screen already, but you still wanted to copy something onto your notes, just raise your hand and let me know. Okay, I'm more than happy to flip back to a previous page or repeat a sentence if I can, and so on and so forth. So try not to disturb other students. Just let me know if it is related to class content. Is that okay? If you have any questions regarding the content of the class, like there's a word that you don't fully understand, raise your hand and ask me. Okay, I will try my best. I got paid to do this. Okay, so give me a chance to do it first. Are we good? All right. Interrupting usually is not a problem. Usually it's just because someone is too enthusiastic to tell me what the answer of a question is. So just try to raise your hand first, so I can just kind of point to you. Then you can go ahead and talk. Okay. All right. Drinking in the classroom, because there is a no drinking sign here. You can drink plain water, okay, because it doesn't leave a stain. Yeah, the carpet may be damp for a little bit, but it doesn't leave any stain. It's okay in this classroom, so that's perfectly okay. That's perfectly okay. But anything that's sweet, sugary, or that can leave a stain, like coffee, tea, or stuff like that, you can drink outside of the classroom, okay, before or after the class, but not during class. All right. How to attend lectures. I record all my lectures. So we are recording right now. We are actually, I shouldn't say recording, it's streaming. Okay, so all of this is being streamed to YouTube as we speak. Okay, but it is unlisted by default. So by the end of a class, I have to turn it into public, rename it in order for you guys to see it. Okay, so one thing you might want to do is to double check that I am actually recording, because sometimes I forget to press a button, I forget to turn on the mic or something like that. So you might want to double check with me or ask me to double check at the beginning of a class to make sure that the lecture is recorded. So assuming a lecture is recorded, how would that affect what you do during a lecture? I can now fall asleep because it's all recorded. Not quite that, but what can you do slightly differently compared to a class where the screen and the voice of the professor is not recorded? Yep.
If you miss something, you don't have to worry about it too much because it's recorded.
Exactly. If it's a detail, if it's a minor thing, like how to spell a keyword in a programming language, is no big deal. Okay. But you do want to jot down the time, so you can find it quickly, in the video recording. Okay. What else? Anything that is on the screen, anything that I talk about, you really don't need to write it down because it's already on YouTube. Does that mean you don't have to bring a notebook anymore? There's nothing for you to do during class? What would you write on your own notebook if everything is already recorded? What can I not record? What can't I record using this technology? Sorry? Personal notes. Very good. What is on your mind? Okay? I cannot tell what is on your mind. I cannot include it on the projector. This is not a psychic projector from Doctor Who, right? Because what is on your mind is your personal understanding of the material that we talk about in this class. I talk about the material, and even if the entire class understands the material, the way that each person understands the material can be different. Okay, we'll get to the concept of understanding later. So you still want to write down on your notes, in your own words, how a concept relates to something that you already understand. Okay, because that one is personal. Okay, only you know about that connection in your mind, and that is what you need to write down. But you can focus on just writing that down along and not having to write down everything that's on the projector. So I'm hoping that saves you some time during the class. Section 17 is really long. I will not read the entire thing, although I will read certain parts of it, or at least focus on certain parts of it. Does everybody understand what understanding is? And that is kind of a joke, but it's not entirely a joke. Okay? So let me ask that question again. Does everybody understand what understanding is? Can you tell me what is to understand something? Does anyone want to try? Yes, go ahead.
You can explain it in your own words.
Can you express it in your own words? Very good. Because if you can verbalize and express it in your own words, it means you have made connections of that concept that you're explaining to concepts that you have already understood. So it's about that connection. Understanding is about the connection between the concepts in your mind. It is not, okay, and I repeat, it is not about memorization. There's a huge, huge difference between understanding versus memorization. All right? I have to kind of make that clear because many people can get through high school just by sheer memorization. And we are talking about classes like science classes, we're talking about biology classes, we're talking about math classes even. And some people can brute force through those classes just by having good memory and good study skills. Okay? But in this class, it is all about the understanding of concepts, and the ability to apply those concepts to problem solve. Okay, so it's very different compared to high school classes where strong memory definitely helps a lot. Okay, so understanding material is very important. So this is a long section that kind of explains what understanding is. Um, I forgot what I was about to say. It happens a lot, actually, with me, because when I say something, my mind is already ahead of my talking, and there are several branches that are simultaneously occurring. So when I talk, I have to constantly pick one branch of the thought. So it's very easy for me to kind of lose track of some of the alternative branches. It just happened. So you can go through all of this stuff here to see how I explain what is to understand. Oh, now I remember. That's it. Okay. This is one thing that I kind of discover is a correlation between students who do really well in my classes and students who do okay but not really well in my class. Okay, I'm assuming both students are putting in the effort. Okay, so because nothing can make up for effort. The students who tend to do really well in my class are the ones who can, in their own mind, evaluate something and say, I don't think I fully understand this concept yet. As opposed to a student, who's getting a passing grade, work really hard, but not having the ability to differentiate and go like, I don't think I understand this concept. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Okay. So I don't know how to teach that skill. Okay. I don't know how to teach the skill that you can use in your own mind so that you can actually tell whether you're truly understanding a concept or not. I can give you an example. The concepts of speed versus velocity in physics. Okay, so this is specific to the physics context. Okay, so do you understand those concepts? What are those concepts? Well, they're very specific. Speed is defined to be distance over time. Okay, what about velocity? It's displacement over time. So now you have to ask yourself, oh, what is distance and what is displacement? Are those two exactly the same thing, or are they different? If they are different, how are they different? Well, as it turns out, displacement is a single dimension value. It really is just a single value, but displacement is not. Displacement is a vector. Okay, it's basically, it has direction to it. It has the length and a direction to it. So they are distinct concepts. They're not the same concept. So that's what I mean when I said, do you understand the difference between those two? So if you, in your mind, if you say, yeah, I kind of not understand the difference between those two, that means, then look it up, okay? Find out how they are different. We'll get back to this a little bit later. This class is all about problem solving, even though some of the homework assignments look kind of repetitive, but the content has to do with problem solving, okay? You are learning the concepts and you are using those skills to problem solve. So this section talks about what I consider as problem solving and how to do it. This is kind of important too, independence. It goes along with different ways of learning. How many people learn better with collaboration, and how many people in this class always just learn by yourself, alone? So let's go for the collaborative learners first. Okay, so how many of you learn better when you are collaborating with somebody else? Okay, Very good. How about people who learn really well just by themselves? They do not want to be with other people. So we can see that it's about 50-50, okay, in terms of how many hands up for one and how many hands up for the other. It's okay to collaborate, okay? That's fine because some people just learn better, when they have somebody else to bounce idea off of. So that's okay. The question is how much independence and how much collaboration? What is the ratio of those two? So let's just say that I give you a homework assignment. Due date is in a week, which is very typical for my homework assignment. You have 1 week to get it done. And it's a particularly difficult homework assignment, okay? So you get it and you look at the question and go like, I'm not quite sure how to do it, okay? The question is, how long do you wait? How much time do you allow yourself to think about the problem before you try to collaborate with somebody else or ask questions in class? That's what I'm asking. So it can range from a few minutes, okay? Within a few minutes of getting the homework assignment, you go like, I'm not getting this, I'm gonna ask Joe, okay? Because Joe always gets the idea. Or do you wait an hour? Do you wait a day, okay? Now, the idea of giving you a 1 week due date is so that we have at least one lecture in between. So if you get started on the homework assignment right away, start thinking about it right away, you have at least 2 days, okay? Because if it's assigned today, we have Thursday for you to ask questions, right? So that's 2 days already. Well, if you cannot figure out how to approach the problem in 2 days, I would say it's a good time to ask questions. Okay, maybe there's an idea or concept that you're missing. Maybe there's an idea or concept that I forgot to talk about in class. Okay, it can be many different reasons. But 2 days would be a good, reasonable amount of time to allow yourself to try to understand a concept and try to apply what you have learned. Does that make sense? Okay, all right. All right. So moving on. Grading standard. Okay, so you guys know about AB. Oh. Okay, what is happening? It happened with my morning class too. I have no idea why it is happening. It is still connected on this side, but it's not displaying anything on the projector. There we go. But it's kind of shaky. It has to do with the refresh. There we go. Much better. All right. So we know the letter grades A, B, C, D, F already. Most people know the short description of the grades. A is excellent and all the way down to F, which is a fail. This is kind of funny because I grew up in Hong Kong, and the high school exit examination also has letter grades, except we went from A to H. A, B, C, D, E are passing grades. F, G, and H are failing grades. So somebody can fail barely, getting an F, fail, getting a G, or fail badly, getting an H. That tells you something about the British education system, doesn't it? Not only do you fail, you are the failures of the failures. That's like extra kicks to those who are down. When I grade your homework assignment and when I grade the answers of the questions in the exams, this is what I use. I know it's kind of subjective, but that's what I need to do to grade your submissions. A is easy, okay? It's a perfect answer. I cannot come up with a better answer than this, okay? So obviously it deserves an A. And F is also easy to define. There's no answer, okay? It was blank. Or the answer has nothing to do with the question itself. It does not reflect any type of understanding whatsoever, of the concept that is involved. Okay, so I think the two ends are pretty easy to interpret. So it's the middle three that are kind of like, okay, how do we differentiate between the three? The difference between an A and a B is an answer that has some careless omission or careless mistakes. I can see quite clearly that person knows all of that stuff, but just made a mistake here and then forgot to mention it over here. So that turns an A into a B. Yes? Like in a proof, okay? So in a mathematical proof, someone gave me all the key steps are there, okay? The proof came to the correct conclusion, but some of the steps in between are missing. So somebody forgot to say, oh, I'm using the commutative law, and over here I'm using the distributive law, and basically it's too obvious, and that person just decided, oh, okay, I don't need to mention it. But the question may actually require that as a part of the answer. Okay? The difference between a B and a C is a C has the core concepts right, okay, but a lot of mistakes and a lot of omissions. Okay, so it's hard for me to kind of quantify these two unless we have an example, like a specific case. The difference between a C and a D is, in the case of a C, I can still see that person understands the core concept related to the question, but got just about all the other stuff wrong. Okay, the D answer is basically saying, the person seems to understand what I'm asking, but does not give me enough evidence that there's enough understanding of the material. So there's a difference between understanding what the question is asking as opposed to giving me the right answer. So a D is saying, I understand the question, I will give it my best try, but it's not enough, as opposed to an F, which is no indication that person understands what the question is asking or has no understanding of the concept involved in the question. All right, is that okay? I know it's kind of fuzzy and a little bit subjective, but this is how I evaluate answers in this class. Which allows me to, okay, let me just kind of go through these as well. So if you want to look at A, B, C, D, F as 5 to 1 stars in product evaluation on Amazon and other websites, that's kind of what each grade is corresponding to. I mean, you guys have read product evaluations, right? Many of you probably have written a few too. So is that consistent with your understanding of the star system? Pretty much, okay. So that means we can equate A, B, C, D, F to something that we all understand, which is Amazon product evaluation, and that's good. So at the end of the entire semester, how do I assign letter grades? This part did not format correctly. I probably have to fix it at some point. If somebody gets 87.5% or more at the end of the semester in terms of points, that's an A. 62.5% or more, but less than 87.5% is a B. 37.5% or more, but less than 62.5% is a C. So the bare minimum to get a C, which is what you need to move on to cisp360, is 37.5%. A D is 12.5%, and anything below that is an F. Okay, are there any questions about this particular scheme of assigning letter grades? I have a question. Does that mean this is an easy class to pass? Why not? Yeah. Exactly. I do not ask multiple choice questions. I only ask open-ended questions. There's no padding to the first 60%. Okay, that's the best way I can describe it, is there's no padding to get to the first 60%. Every single question is open-ended, and it involves problem solving. There's no question at all that involves memorization. I do not test your memorization ability. Why? Because in both exams and the final exam, they're all open book and open notes. You can bring anything that is handwritten or printed prior to the test. If you go through the video recording and there's one particular screen that you think is really helpful, freeze that frame, print it. You can bring it, okay? And there's no limitation on how much you can bring with you other than physical limits. Okay, now we do have a little bit more physical limits in this class because it's a full class, so you cannot bring so much stuff that exceeds what you really should be using in terms of floor space. Okay, but other than that, okay, you can bring anything that is on paper basically. We cannot have sorry? No cell phone, no electronics. So as I said, anything that is handwritten or printed prior to the test. So no electronics, okay? And no sharing of notes, during the assessment. But beyond that, you can work together to come up with, the material that you bring to class. A concise version of everything that we talk about. That's okay. I encourage people to study together. Collaborative, studying is good for certain types of people. No problem, okay? If you come up with 600 pages of stuff that you want to bring to class, it's fine. If you find a textbook that seems to be helpful to you, you can bring it. If you find all the past exams I have ever used in this class and you think it is helpful, bring that with you too. My past exams are no secret. You can just ask people about my past exams, okay? I keep track of some and I use those as practice questions. But if you find some friends and go like, oh, you took cisp300 from Tech, so what was on your final exam? That's totally legit. Not a problem at all. Because I always come up with new ways of asking questions every semester. Which keeps me alive or feeling alive because I cannot do the same thing over and over again. So are we good so far with all of this stuff? Okay. It's 27. We still got a good chunk of time. So this part talks about what I use so they can earn your points and get your grade. Homework assignments, they're only worth 20% of your grade. So all of the homework assignments for the entire semester, they only add up to 20%. Okay? But this is the part where you can be collaborative. Okay? If you say, I want to work with somebody else when I work on my homework assignment, it's okay, but don't copy. Okay? In other words, you can talk about the concepts involved, you can talk about how to approach the homework assignment, but don't just copy from somebody else because that is not going to help you or the other person. Okay, so when it's collaborative, it means talk about things and help each other learn the material. But all of this adds up to 20%. The next 20% comes from the first exam. The first exam occurs at about 1/3 through the semester, so it's typically week 5 to week 6-ish. Okay. It's open book and open notes. The second exam is also 20% of your grade, and that's usually about week 10 or 11 or so, which is about 2/3 through the semester. Okay, and then the final exam is 40% of your grade, and that's at the end of the semester. So do we have any questions about how the points are allocated? No questions? Yep.
So do quizzes consider as a homework?
I don't usually do quizzes, so I just put it there just in case I do, but I usually do not do quizzes. Okay. Now, I have been asked in the past many times, in addition to things that I grade, because grading actually takes a lot of time for me, can we get some exercise that is not graded? And the answer is yes. Okay, so you can remind me to give you some exercises that you can do It's not going to be graded, okay? But it will still involve, studying and practicing all the things that you have learned. So, I will give you a problem to solve, and then the following week, I'll give you the solution. And we can talk about the solution too. So we can do all of that stuff too, but it's not going to be graded. Something not being graded does not mean it is not useful. Many times those are as useful as the graded homework assignment. It's just that I cannot physically have enough time to grade all of the homework assignments. So that's why some of them is not going to be graded. All right? Any questions? No questions? Well, I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions for you. You don't have to answer those questions if you do not feel like it. That's fine. But for those who are not shy about that, you can tell me. So I know it doesn't sound very good. Okay, is computer science for you? Okay, but why do you think it is a question that you should ask yourself? I mean, if you're here, you probably have an answer, but why is that question important?
If you're here, you're spending your time to be here, and then
Yes. Mm-hmm.
so.
So it's about alternative or opportunity cost. Okay, so by pursuing computer science, you are not pursuing some other things that you could have. So the question is your time better spent pursuing computer science, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, architecture, and so on and so forth? Because there are a lot of possibilities. You have to ask yourself, why do you think that you want to get into computer science? I know math majors and engineering majors also have to take a question or share with the class. Nobody wants to? Okay. Well, I can be the first one to answer that question, okay? Well, that's the only thing I'm good at. And that was it. When I graduated from high school, my father asked, "Hey, Tack, what do you want to study? You're moving on to college, so what do you want to do?" And I told my dad, there are only two things I really care about and I was good at. One was astrophysics, and the other one was computer science. And I said, well, Dad, you can pick one for me, okay? And he picked computer science. And that was it. That was the end of it. Okay? So it wasn't a difficult choice for me. If you are good at a lot of things, it can be a very difficult question to answer. Okay? I'm good at music, I'm good at computer science, I'm good at math, I'm good at biology. Okay? I can be an MD, I can be a doctor, I can be a lawyer, I can be blah blah blah. Okay, which one should I choose? So now it becomes a harder question. But since I was only good at computer science, that was an easy choice. Okay? Some people consider computer science because of the money. Okay? I did not get into computer science because of the money, because there was no money when I got started with computer science. I'm that old. Okay? Programming does make a lot of money, but you still need to be good at it in order to get the high-paying jobs. So the question is really, are you going to be good at this? Is this a good fit for you? Now, I'm not trying to discourage anyone in this class from continuing with this path, but I'm asking you these questions because I have seen, more than one cases of, people who are in computer science, but it turned out not to be a good fit. I'll tell you this story then. There was one time I had a student in my computer cisp300 class, which is assembly language programming. And the student was having a hard time catching up with the class, understanding the concepts, getting the homework done, and came to my office hour often to ask me about those things. So this particular student was putting in the effort to try to get a good grade to do what is necessary. Okay? But still, the student was not doing that well in class. And eventually, I think this student failed the class, got a D out of the class. And the following semester, I met the student again somewhere on campus. And then the student came to me and said, "Thanks, Tack." And of course, immediately I thought, well, that was kind of sarcastic, but maybe I deserved it. Okay? But then the student said, "No, no, no, really, thank you." Because I told the student about the MBTI personality assessment, and the student told me that based on the MBTI personality assessment, this particular student was, well, according to the test, okay, business and other things that involves interaction with people is actually a better suited, area compared to computer science, which involves more rational thinking, logic, analysis, and abstract thinking. And this particular student changed major to business with a focus on MIS, Management Information System, and the student said that is the perfect fit. So she was actually, okay, I slipped, okay, I disclosed the gender of the student. I was trying my best not to disclose anything, but I did. So she was actually happy. She was actually happy that she changed her major to, business with MIS as a focus. So it's just one example. Of course, it's not too much. How many people already know about MBTI, Myers-Briggs Type Indicator? Okay, we got 2 hands back there. Okay, a few to the front. Okay, so the majority of people do not know about this. It is not a homework assignment. You do not have to do this, but I do encourage you to do it. So one website. Okay. Did I misspell it? I don't think so. Must have misspelled it the other way. Anyway, it's basically, you don't have to tell them, you don't have to sign in, you don't have to disclose your email address. You can take the test without disclosing anything at all. Okay, you don't have to pay anything. It's a 50-question kind of thing. They will ask you about, okay, I can show you what the questions are, just a few, okay? So when you take the test, it will give you like 50 simple questions like this. You enjoy vibrant social events with lots of people. So according to what you think you would like, you just say strongly disagree, kind of neutral, or strongly agree. Okay, so you can just kind of pick one of these. You often spend time exploring unrealistic yet intriguing ideas. Oh yeah. Your travel plans are more likely to look like a rough list of ideas rather than a detailed itinerary. Yeah, I would say that is the case. So you keep answering these questions. There are 50 of these, so it won't take you too long to answer all of the questions, maybe 15 to 20 minutes, okay? And when this is all done, it will give you a 4-letter personality indicator. Okay, that's the indicator. And the 4-letter indicator is explained up here. So if you go to personality types, we have, so this is the 4-letter that I'm talking about. So the first letter is either an I or an E. I is introvert, E is extrovert. It has to do with how you recharge, okay? So when you're tired, when you're feeling drained and tired, do you turn in and say, I want to spend some time by myself to recharge? Or do you turn outward and say, I'm going to go to a place and talk to strangers because that recharges my energy? Okay, so that determines whether you're introverted or extroverted. The second letter is either an N, or if you see, go to later on, or S. Okay, N stands for intuition. I know intuition starts with an I, but they don't want to use the same letter twice, so it starts with an N. So intuitive people are people who focus on patterns, and sensing are the people who focus on details on facts. Okay, so if somebody tells you a lot of details and you can retain all the details and you focus on details, then you are a sensing type of person. On the other hand, if you notice patterns but you cannot remember details, then you're more likely to be an intuitive person. Okay, that's what the second letter is. The third letter is either a T for thinking or F for feeling. Okay, that's a judging function. In other words, when you need to make a decision, okay, how do you prioritize things? Do you prioritize because of how other people are feeling, how you are feeling, or do you prioritize because what makes sense? Okay, what is the correct thing to do? Okay, so it's either T or F for the third letter, and then the fourth letter is either a P for perceiving or J for judging. Perceiving is basically saying those people can leave things open-ended. They do not need closure. They do not need structure, nor they want structure. They just want things to be free and just explore things. It's doing this again. I'm going to reset it again. I have to find out why this is happening. But just give me a moment to fix this. How are we doing in time? We still got time. So there we go. I think we should be getting it back. Yep, there we go. All right. So the fourth letter is either P for perceiving or J for judging. If you get a J, it means structure is important to you. Okay, like your desk is likely to be organized. You like to know when to do what and so on. If you get a P, well, you may have a messier desk, because order and structure is not important to you. A J also means you need to have closure. You have to throw things into bins right away. Good versus bad, correct versus incorrect, and so on. If you have a P, you simply said, well, it is what it is, but you're not going to label things unless someone asks you, okay, tell me, is that good or bad? Let me think about it. It's sort of good and sort of bad. It's good because blah, blah, blah. It's bad because of blah, blah, blah. Okay, give me just one conclusion. Is it bad or not? Okay, so, but these tendencies, okay, can influence what type of career is best for you. Okay, now take this with a grain of salt. It is not a universal fit. Okay, just because you are INTP does not necessarily mean that you will be successful as a software engineer. It simply means that you have a tendency that can be helpful in the career of becoming a software engineer. Okay, but I do encourage you guys to take this test. It's a lot of fun for me. You might find facts that you may or may not know about yourself as a result of taking this test. So it's kind of cool. You don't have to disclose your answer to me. I will not ask you about your results, but I think it is helpful. Okay. Do we have any questions about personality tests? Not just the MBTI one, but there are a few other ones, but this is a good start. No questions? Okay. Well, if there are no questions and we still have 5 minutes left, let's move on and talk about some other stuff. How much money do you think you'll be making once you get your bachelor's degree and out of college? Yep. I think that's something we can find out, right? So you can go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics of Occupations, which is a website maintained by the federal government. I just want to go there. It's not letting me get there. Okay, fine. We'll search this way. Bureau Bureau of Labor Statistics job outlooks. And then we can look up computer and information technology. And these are the median pay in 2018, but these are not entry level positions. These are the median pay. So that means, the quote unquote majority of the people, or the people at the center of the entire curve, will be making this amount of money. So depending on whether you are a research scientist, a network architect, computer programmers, and so on, you have a general idea of how much money people make. Okay? So what do you need to do to become a programmer? If you look at this list and you go like, I'm going to pick the highest number because, I like to get rich fast. Okay, so the highest one is, in fact, the first one. So when you click on it, it will give you some more information. So it will tell you what kind of education you will need in order to become a computer and information research scientist. Let's see, number of jobs in 2016 is 27,900, and employment change from 2016 to 26 is 5,400, and it's going to see a 19% increase, which is much faster than average. Okay, but it's only 5,000. Okay, only 5,400 jobs more during a 10-year span. It is not a whole lot. And that's because there's not a whole lot of need for research scientists. Now we can look at some other job occupations. Let's look at something that's a lot more common. Okay, we'll look at software developer. That's a really, really common kind of job within computer science. So when you look at this one, it looks a lot more promising, doesn't it? The pay is not that much lower. It's lower by, 10% or so, okay? But when you look at the employment in 2016 is 1,256,000 and so on, okay? The growth is by 302,000 within the same 10-year period, okay? And it's also a higher growth rate at 24% instead of 19%. Is that okay? Is that making any sense? So this is what you also can kind of research and find out, okay, I know I want to get into something that relates to computer science, but what exactly? Okay? You don't have to decide until much later, but it is never a bad idea to know ahead of time what the alternatives are and what you need to do for each alternative. So we don't have any homework assignment per se, just a few things that I recommend that you do. So let me spell those out first. So I want you guys to read the first link under control structures, because that's what we'll do on Thursday. But at the same time, if you want to evaluate potentials of what you think you want to get into, go to the labor statistics website. Okay, this link doesn't work unfortunately, but you saw how I did it. And also take the personality test and see whether it seems correct or not, it seems to be accurate or not, and what kind of recommendation, based on your personality, that website is giving you. But keep in mind, if computer science is not on that list, it does not mean anything. Okay, it does not mean that you should not get into computer science. It simply means that some other fields may be a better choice. Yep, go ahead.
We're on the wait list. Are we going to have access to this?
Not yet. Okay, so for people who are on waitlist, I'm going to take the roll sheet. If you initial next to your name, I will send you, I won't send you a permission number just yet, but I will add you to Canvas sometime today so that you will have access just like all the other students. Okay? And then on Thursday, I'll decide, how many people I'm going to add to the class. Since everybody has a seat, I have the potential of adding everybody into the class, but that means my workload is going to change significantly. So I have to think about how many people I can add. Okay. All right. So I'll see you guys on Thursday, and have a nice day.
Thank you. Professor Jack, I did have a question. This
Yeah.
is Canvas,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and that's just you can log into it through like your e-services, right?
Give me a second here. Let me turn off the recorder first, then I can